Well, we just started our dive in a place called Uncle Lucky's. It's a dive site on the south side of Little Cayman. And we hit the water, and just below the boat, we found our first Nassau grouper. And here he is hanging out with us. And one of the really cool things about Nassau grouper is that as a diver, it's often pretty easy to get very close to Nassau grouper. Okay, so now our Nassau grouper has come out from underneath the hole that he was hiding from a little bit ago. They're a very beautiful animal when you get up close to them like this. I wonder if he'll let me pet him. Probably best to let the animals be cautious. We can get close, and we can look at them, but probably best to not get too close to them. We've been doing this dive now for about 20 minutes. We've seen a couple of different Nassau grouper, and really, they've been hanging out with us for most of the dive. And this guy's been quite friendly. Now on this dive, it's myself, Christy, and here's Todd up here as well. Hey Christy, can you show the camera to Todd? Point the camera at Todd so kids can see Todd too. There's Todd, enjoying the dive. I don't know if you can hear me say, "Hi Todd, woo!" There you go. So I'm going to go ahead and try and get up closer to him a little bit, see if I can see that cleaning fish. It could be that it's a shrimp as well. There's all kinds of different animals that act as cleaners on the reef. We don't know which one is doing it right now. We'll take a look and see if we can see it. Well, it appears as if there's a little cleaning goby, very, very small, just up underneath that ledge. And that's what's doing the cleaning right now. Yeah, it's right in its nostril now. It's actually picking parasites out of its nostril. Oh, and here comes another Nassau grouper. And you notice how that Nassau grouper just turned black on the top and white on the bottom. That's the color the Nassau grouper will often take on when they're interacting. It's called bicolor phase. And now we've had the bigger Nassau grouper move in, presumably to take up the spot on the cleaning station. And there you can really see the cleaning goby right on the side of the eye of the fish, going in and out of the mouth. Really giving this Nassau grouper a once-over, making sure it's good and clean. Pretty amazing to watch these small fishes do the work of cleaning up the bigger fish on the reef. Pretty cool. Hey guys, I see a really cool animal. I'm sure you guys have all probably had conch for food before. Conch's a very important food source for Caribbean coral reefs. It's also quite tasty, and in all places throughout the Caribbean it's not managed very well. Cayman Islands has a pretty strong management policy geared towards conch. Good. This is what a conch looks like when you find it on the home reef. You can see eyes stick out here. And if you pick it up and turn it over, you'd be able to see the animal underneath. There he is, he's just slipping away there. So we'll put him right back down on the sand and let him doing his good work. Okay, as we come up on this Nassau grouper, I want you to notice that since it's near the sand and it's hiding out on the reef, it has a really light color to it. And that's called camouflage, right? So typically Nassau grouper have that barred or tiger stripe pattern. But when they're down on the reef and they're near sand, they'll often take on that white color phase. They'll do this out of the aggregation site as well, and we'll see that in February. But they do it here so that when a predator, if there was one around, is looking for something to eat, they may miss the Nassau groupworm because it blends in with the sand or the background that it's sitting next to. As opposed to that other Nassau groupworm we were looking at earlier that was right down on the reef, or excuse me, on the sand, it was white. This Nassau grouper is up on the reef proper, and you can see it's really got that dark tiger stripe pattern. That helps it blend in with the reef rather than the sand. Oh, okay. Here's something really cool. Well, actually, it's quite horrible, but they sure are pretty anyway. This is a lionfish, the Indo-Pacific lionfish. Scientific name is Pterois volitans. These guys invaded about 20 years ago into the Caribbean, somewhere off the coast of Florida. And since that time, they've been very rapidly expanding throughout the entire Caribbean range. The first lionfish was found in the Caymans about 3 years ago, and since that time, there have been more and more of them showing up every day, but as at least our high school class talked about, the Department of the Environment and Mr. Bradley Johnson and others have been doing a really wonderful job of attempting to control the lionfish population, especially on the dive sites where divers visit more often. Surgeon fishes, here's a couple of surgeon fishes right here. These are not very large ones, but you see them roaming around the reef looking for substrate to feed on. Now remember, surgeon fishes are herbivores, which means they eat algae, plants and algae. So these guys are part of the big process of a healthy reef in terms of herbivores roaming around, consuming the algae, cropping it low, so that that open substrate, new juvenile coral can recruit and grow, and we can maintain healthy coral cover. It's all part of being on a healthy coral reef. Herbivores are a critical part of healthy coral reefs. Okay, here comes another large predator on Caribbean coral reefs. This is a mutton snapper. Of course, it's not a grouper. It is obviously a snapper. And these guys will eat often fish, but sometimes invertebrates as well. They tend to be found near sand patches, which is why there's at least one or two mutton snapper right here. This guy doesn't want to leave us alone. Non-stop, they're always around us. That's a different one, actually. There's a lot of them around here. And that's a good thing. Lots of Nassau grouper on a reef means a very healthy reef. That was pretty cool. Do you see how quickly it changed color from a light coloration to a dark one as it moved right next to that sea fan? And now he's checking out Todd. And of course Todd is checking out him. This is one of the really great things about Nassau grouper is as a diver, you can have a really, really wonderful interaction with this animal. They're very curious, social, and gregarious, which makes for a really wonderful interaction between animal and diver. Christy, turn around and take a look. Get that other Nassau grouper that's right next to you there. There he is. He's getting in on the action. And watch as he approaches this Nassau grouper with the change in color, where he goes white belly and dark, this bicolor phase. And then as he swims away, he changes back into his more regular barred coloration. Really cool interactions. Amazing the way these animals can change their colors very, very rapidly. Okay, we talked about damselfish in the class. Here's an example of a damselfish. This is actually a dusky damsel. It's very similar to the three-spot damselfish. But if you watch it, we'll get close to him, and he'll be kind of afraid of us, but he's never going to leave this little territory right here. Doesn't matter how much we harass him. And the reason is because this is his home turf, and he's protecting it against other animals that may come in and try and take some of his food. And if you're watching around the coral reef here, you'll see these types of damselfish everywhere. They're all over the reef. Again, doing their part to keep the algae low so we can get new corals to recruit and maintain a healthy coral reef. Here's another lionfish. Right out here in the open. These guys are not really afraid of anything. For a couple of different reasons. One, the spines on the back of the lionfish are poisonous. So they're very well defended. But also, there's very few fish on Caribbean coral reefs that will actually attack and eat a lionfish. As a matter of fact, one of the only animals to be observed to do this, but not on a regular basis, but on a few occasions, is the Nassau grouper. And that just brings home one really important point about large predators on coral reefs and maintaining a healthy reef balance. When you have an invasive threat like this lionfish, it's probably going to be the case that your best bet against defending against this threat is to have large predators on your coral reefs that can eat these lionfish, just like the Nassau grouper. Now, these things sure are pretty, but they are absolutely poisonous. When you get hit, they're very, very painful. So not something you really want to mess with unless you get proper training. Unfortunately, places like the Cayman Islands are providing that training on a regular basis so that we can start to control these animals as they become more and more prevalent. Sure are pretty, though. Look at, they're very, very unafraid of me. Now, in class we talked quite a bit about coral. Remember, when we did our virtual dive, it was the first thing we talked about. So if you're watching this dive that we're doing now, I want you to be watching around for all the different kinds of coral and animals that are creating habitat on the coral reef. Here's a couple of really great examples now of different types of corals that you'll see around the Cayman Islands. And of course, it's not just hard corals, it's soft corals as well. Many, many different types of benthic animals, or animals that not just live on the substrate, but also create it. And right now, in this coral, you can see that the polyps are actually just starting to come out. And that's because it's dusk, so in a couple of hours, actually probably less, maybe half an hour or so, these coral polyps will have their tentacles all the way out, and they'll be feeding on plankton as it swims by at night. So they're getting ready to start moving away from photosynthesis and starting to do some actual eating. Okay, here comes something pretty cool. This looks like a little reef shark that's swimming right by us. These guys usually hang out right near the wall's edge, because that's where we are. On the very edge of the wall where it drops off down to deeper waters. And these guys will hunt up and down that wall looking for easy prey. Okay, we talked about in class planktivores. Here's a great example of some planktivores. These are creole wrasse. And all up in here you see them up in the water column. And there goes actually a little black-tip reef shark right there. But these planktivores, they're going to go up into the water column, feed away, then they'll dart back down whenever there's something big that comes by that might be able to eat them, like that shark. Now I'm free! Free flowing!
Are you sure you're not suffering from nitrogen narcosis?
No, I am not certain of that. In fact, I'm certain I am. Just a little bit nerved. Giddy up.